I agree with her that what happened to her son, Eric Garner, it's a tragedy. I also agree with her. I don't know if I agree with all the officers being fired. I certainly believe that one officer who put him in a chokehold could have been criminally charged. I certainly agree with that. I think this case is even more definitive, and I don't mean any disrespect to Eric Garner or his mother or the family, because what happened to Eric Garner was a travesty and it should have never happened. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some criminal acts being made there. But what I am saying is I think in this George Floyd case, it is even more, I hate to use the term black and white, but I'm going to use it here. It is.
It's certainly much more apparent.
Yes.
It's a clear-cut situation, kind of like the Ahmaud Arbery situation. It's much more clear-cut, in my personal opinion.
Well, there's no question it is. But she said some interesting things there that I agree with. Officers like this should never be on the streets. She said Eric Garner wasn't even selling cigarettes. I'm going to believe her. He had just broken up a fight. He seemed extremely agitated. I'm talking about Eric Garner now. He seemed I watched the video again last night. I hadn't seen it in years. He seemed extremely agitated, these police officers, like they had done this to him before. And
well, the conversation was that he had been basically asked not to do or not to sell cigarettes outside of that particular place almost 30 times in the last couple of years, and so it's good to hear that is not what was taking place.
But even if he was selling cigarettes, again, I pose this question to our listeners, whether it's Eric Garner or George Floyd. I pose this question: if Eric Garner was white, would it have been the same result? If George Floyd was white, would they have treated him the same way? And the answer that I give is no. And by the way, I am not trying to race bait here. I am being honest.
You're asking a legitimate question, I think.
I am being honest. I think the answer is no.
Now, what if Eric Garner wasn't 6'7", 360 pounds? Because he was an enormous human being.
Here's why I don't think so. George Floyd is a perfect example of that. He was a tall guy, but he wasn't large. He looked like he weighed maybe 180. He looked like me, only I'm white.
Right.
Okay? He looked like he was 180, 190 pounds. 3 cops had their legs, arms, or knee over this man. Is that necessary?
Of course not.
Okay, so there's my answer. I don't think Eric Gardner's height or weight had much to do with anything. I think it had everything to do with police wanting to use force when it shouldn't have gotten to that point. Now, here's where
I think that the police officer who put Eric Garner in a chokehold was a smaller guy and felt intimidated because of his physical imposing presence.
Well, listen, when you feel intimidated, it should be if the guy has a weapon and you feel like you're in dangerous bodily harm. There were 4 or 5 other officers there. No officer in that situation should have felt like their life was in jeopardy because the guy didn't have any weapons on him and he wasn't throwing punches or anything. Was he a big guy? Sure. But they put him to the ground and then he says he can't breathe, very similar to George Floyd. When a guy says he can't breathe, and he's already detained in handcuffs, there is absolutely no reason, and I mean no reason. Now listen, if any of these people, if Eric Garner or George Floyd, if they were throwing punches, if they were injuring officers, if police thought they might have a weapon, completely different circumstances. I say everything and anything is on the table. Pull out your gun. Shoot the guy if you think your life is in harm. That was not the case in the Eric Garner situation, and it certainly was not the case in the George Floyd situation. We're going to take some phone calls now. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Again, 257-5396. That was a very powerful and difficult interview to do. We just had the mother of the late Eric Garner on the line. Very similar circumstances, at least with what Eric Garner said moments before he lost his life. I can't breathe. That's what George Floyd said. I can't breathe, sir. Please. I can't breathe. How can anybody defend the actions of the police in that situation? Again, that number is 257-5396. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinions on this. Don't care what the color of your skin is right now. I want to hear from you. 257-5396. Let's go to Chris. Chris, you are first up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, man, I hang out with some real tough guys, and they're fighters and all that stuff. And we watched that news broadcast last night of this guy, and I'll tell you what, man, that was a pretty bad thing to watch. And even the rough guys were like, man, that cop's got to go down.
Right.
And
right.
And the guy, and then there was the one. I don't know if he was an Asian cop. The guy that was sort of telling
Correct.
the crowd to back up.
Yep.
He
Yep.
didn't say a ding. He didn't say a
Chris,
word
can
to
I add?
nobody.
Chris, can I add something to that? Chris, let me add something to that. Give you a little tidbit. This is from what I've heard. I believe it to be true. The guy who had the knee over George Floyd is married to the Asian officer's sister, from what I understand. That is,
Yeah,
so that's
man.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, bad guys run together. So you can't blame all the cops, and because I know a lot of good dudes who are cops.
Sure. As do I.
Man, I'll tell you what, this dude needs to be an example made of big time.
You're damn right. And you know what? I think those 3 other officers that were standing around could be an accessory, and I think you need to make an example out of them as well.
Yeah, because, even if you see a fight and you see the guy getting beat up pretty bad, someone's got to step in and say, that's enough,
Exactly.
You just can't take it that far. It's crazy.
Yeah, Chris, I agree.
I hope something happens to the guy because he doesn't. The guy didn't deserve to die. That's for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. Good phone call. I appreciate you, and you're absolutely right. Let's not forget about those 3 other officers. 2 of them actually had arms and legs over George Floyd in another camera that's showing that, and then you had that other officer, Asian, who was doing nothing but standing there defending the other officers. They're an accessory. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
Yeah, guys, these conversations are really cute now. We're putting everybody on the radio. The bottom line is, look, these cops know what they're doing. Each one of them, what the gear they're carrying is about 40 to 50 pounds. So that's easily 220 pounds at each area. You guys are dithering back and forth about 1 cop, 3 cops. I've been teaching my nieces and nephews, to take care of yourselves. But yeah, you guys are not getting it. America, you guys are not getting it.
Okay, so hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Support the badge.
Hold on a second. Stop. Okay, you need to stop for a second. No, excuse me. You're going to stop for a second. Now you're going to listen to me. What are you talking about? For the last hour and a half, excuse me, it's my turn. No. Pot him down. Pot him down. Pot him down. Pot him down. You're not going to hold your anger because of these 4 officers towards me, sir. For the last hour and a half, I don't know if you have plugs in your ears. For the last hour and a half, I said those cops are murderers. I hope they spend the rest of their life behind bars. We just had Eric Garner's mother on the line. I sympathize with her. You know what? I do support officers, the ones that do their jobs appropriately. Never have I said I support these officers who killed George Floyd or Eric Garner or some of these other cases that we talk about on a regular basis. So with all due respect, sir, what the hell are you talking about?
And I certainly support the badge, but do I support these 4 officers, particularly the one that had his knee on George Floyd's neck while he was listening to him groan and moan and plead for his life while his hand was in his pocket? Of course not, and neither does 99.99% of the country.
Sir,
and due process is going to take place, and these people will. I mean, that officer's life is most likely over, and the 3 officers that were around him, they won't be police officers ever again, and their lives will be drastically altered as well.
I wanted to bring that guy back on.
But we can't make this situation. We can't just call all police officers, scumbags because of the actions of these 4 and that one particular police officer.
What a shocker that guy hangs up the phone. He calls what we're doing cute. You know what you did is cute. What do you think, sir? You think all white people are defending the cops who did this? Why don't you wake up and smell the coffee? Have you been watching the news lately, you dummy? There's not one person on TV, white or black, that is supporting what happened to George Floyd. What the hell are you talking about? You think all white people are backing these police officers because they have badges? You're an idiot if you think that.
What are you supporting? Total anarchy?
Well, the guy,
a war against the police department.
The guy is
a war against all police officers.
Okay, well,
is that what you're supporting?
You know what? That sounded like one of the idiots that was in Minneapolis yesterday that was burning down buildings. He was probably there last night. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. One of those guys, that is calling officers the N-word and thinks that's going to help his cause. Let's go. You're really cute, sir. Pharrell, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Pharrell?
How you guys doing?
Doing good, Pharrell. What's on your mind?
So I kind of had something to say, and then I just listened to what just happened previously, and now I feel like I kind of want to address that. As far as the just the hatred for all cops sort of thing. I think we understand that cops are individual people. I think people understand that. We understand that those people have families, those people have a job that they have to do. But there is an issue that goes on into the culture of policing that refuses to be addressed. And we've seen this for how many times? How many times have we seen, there's countless examples. There shouldn't have to be hashtags. Like, I saw a post the other day where someone was trying to share just all this stuff. They had to stop because Instagram was like, there's too many hashtags you can put in a post. This is something that seriously needs to be addressed.
There's no question. There's no question, sir, that this has been stay on the line. There's no question that this has been going on for decades and decades. I think Will Smith said it best when he said yesterday on social media, it's not that we have more racism now and more police brutality. The difference is that now it's actually being recorded. Does that make sense?
I agree with I do agree with that, but also there's a problem I have being a black man in this country to watch that video and to know that there were 3 other police officers who did nothing. And
no question.
To keep trusting the system, to keep trusting in the police force, to keep trusting that there are good ones doing their job. 1 out of 4. There's a 25% chance that somebody else could have stepped in and did something, and nobody did a damn thing.
I agree.
So why are you asking us to be peaceful right now? Why are you asking us to keep?
Let me address that, sir. Stay on the line.
Hold on. One second.
Quickly.
We tried to talk countless times. Words apparently don't do anything.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. The riots in L.A., the Rodney King situation, when people were committing violence, did that help anybody? Did that change anything? Did that change systemic racism?
It brought awareness.
I didn't ask you. Hold on a second. I didn't ask you if it brought awareness. I asked you a very specific question. Awareness, listen, if you're not aware that there's racial tension and racial divide and inappropriate behavior between police and minorities, then you're a racist yourself. I'm not saying you. I'm saying to white people out there. What I'm asking you is a very specific question. What good is it going to do for your cause if you have minorities out there burning down buildings and committing violent acts? You actually think that's going to help the situation? Do you really believe that, sir?
I don't condone it, but I refuse to condemn it because I understand it.
So you're not going to condemn somebody going into a store and burning down a private business, somebody that had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, sir, I completely disagree with you, but we'll take it to the other side. I appreciate the phone call. We'll take some more phone calls on the other side of the break. The number to call, 702-257-5396. Maybe there's other people out there that think the way that last caller thinks. You're not going to condemn people that are burning down buildings and hurting communities. This has nothing to do right now with what the police officers did. I'm sorry, but it's not going to help your cause. And he answered the question for himself. I said, did what happened with Martin Luther King in L.A. change anything? He said, well, it brought awareness. Well, geez, that really did a lot of good, didn't it, sir?
It's destroying your community, and it's putting people out of work.
That's stupidity.
By destroying their businesses.
That's stupidity. If you think that police officers are all of a sudden going to say, oh, you know what? Maybe we should stop doing this because they're burning down our city. Guess what? There's not one police officer that's thinking that way. Trust me.
Now, that being said, the entire Minneapolis Police Department needs to be thoroughly reviewed and vetted, because this is consistent behavior within that police department. This is the second time in the last 5 years between the Philando Castile situation and the George Floyd situation that something like this has made national news.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue that topic on the other side of the break. We're also going to take your phone calls. 702-257-5396. Do you condone the riots? Do you condone burning down buildings? Or you're on my side, and do you think these rioters should be called out? 702-257-5396. The Vegas Take will be back right after this. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. By the way, coming up here at the top of the hour, former Miss Nevada stripped of her crown because she supports Donald Trump. Her name is Katie Williams. She'll be joining us. Now she's running for something else. We'll explain what that is coming up here in just a little bit. We've been talking about the George Floyd murder, whatever you want to call it, lynching. I mean, it just, we were just talking about this poor kid, Ahmaud Arbery, in Georgia that was gunned down. Why is it that these things keep happening on a regular basis? We're discussing that, but there's two sides to this. The one side is systemic racism and the mistreatment by police on minorities, why I believe all 4 of those officers should be punished harshly. But then the other side of it, we have these rioters out there that think it's okay to throw stuff at police that had nothing to do with this, to burn down buildings. Local business owners had nothing to do with this, and they think that's okay. That's an okay response. How did it work out with the Rodney King stuff? Didn't work out very well. We didn't end systemic racism then. It's not going to end systemic racism now if we see Colin Kaepernick take another knee. 702-257-5396 is the number to call, and I promised I would get back to our busy phone calls. So why don't we do that? I believe our next caller is Mike. Mike, thanks for calling in to the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, how you guys doing today? My
okay.
heart goes out to Floyd's mom. I feel her pain in her conversation with you. I can imagine, well, I cannot imagine what she's been going through. I am a grandfather of 5 beautiful girls, 3 of them which are mixed, African American and Caucasian, and I personally have felt racism from African Americans and from Caucasians with the stares, and they don't verbally make comments, but the stares. And
Right.
This has been going on for some time now. My family has also been a victim of racial crime. My younger brother, Jose, from many years ago in the 70s, I'm in my late 50s now, we were in Brooklyn, New York, where I grew up and was raised, and he was killed by a stray bullet from a different race, but while playing on the sidewalk in front of the
I'm so sorry to
apartment that
hear
we
that.
lived in.
That is awful.
And that created a lot of racial tension in the Italian neighborhood that I was brought up in, and I felt the culture shock from that.
Mike, can I ask you a question? And by the way, I'm so sorry that you and your family had to go through that. That's horrible. So let me ask you this. As someone who has suffered through a loss like that, and as you said to start this phone call, and you're absolutely right, you can't even imagine, what Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner, is going through. What do you think would be, and I hate to use the term justice because George Floyd is never going to come back, but what do you think should happen to those 4 officers?
I think those officers should be tried and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I don't think any of them should get away with anything. I think the officer with his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck while Mr. Floyd was pleading for his life that he could not breathe, I think he should get the most out of the justice system.
Agree.
Whether it be life in prison, death sentence, whatever it is. I certainly believe in an eye for an eye. I don't know if anybody would agree with me or not, but I think the other officers that were on the back end watching this, I think that they saw what was going on at that moment, and I think it was more of a joyful moment for them to show that their badge, their force. One of those officers, at least one of them, should have stopped this and pulled the other officer off and said, "Wait, this man cannot breathe."
Mike, I couldn't agree with you more. I got to get to some other callers. Here's the one thing where I might disagree with you. I don't think I would give any of those officers the death penalty. The officer, I agree with you, that had the knee over George Floyd's neck. I don't know if I would support the death penalty because it doesn't appear to me that it would be premeditated. Doesn't mean it wasn't race related. But with that being said, let me put it to you this way. I think at minimum that guy should get 30 to 40 years. If he ever gets out of jail again, he'll be an old man.
His life is over, Brian.
Yes.
That guy's life is over.
Which is good.
And those other 3 police officers should either be accessory to whatever murder that he is charged with, or they should be charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah. I want to go to Michelle next, I believe. By the way, the number to call, 257-5396. Can we go to Michelle? Michelle, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Michelle?
Hi. I definitely believe that officer should get more than just, what'd you say, 30 to something years?
Well, that's minimum. That's minimum, in my opinion.
And he was probably, 42 years old?
He's up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because
go ahead.
The main thing that really, really bothered me more than the race thing is the fact that you could see it was like, I felt like it was more of a major hate crime because of the fact that even when he stopped moving, he didn't even move his knee. He was still sitting there with his hand in his pocket.
Yeah. Michelle, you're right. Michelle, you're right. I'm not trying to disagree with you here. I'm on your side on this, but I'm just thinking it from a logistical standpoint. In the courtroom, from a law standpoint, it's going to be very, very difficult to give this guy more than 30 or 40 years. Now, the reason for that, besides the fact, sadly, that he's a police officer, it's going to be very hard to prove that it was premeditated, and it's going to be very hard to prove that he was intentionally trying to kill this guy. And in most cases where you get 30 to 40 years, you can prove intent, and you could prove that that person was trying to kill that individual. I'm not defending this police officer. If they gave him the electric chair and he got the crap beat out of him every day for the rest of his life, I wouldn't feel sorry for him. I'm just speaking from a law standpoint, Michelle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Also, with the other officers, I wish I could remember that movie that my husband and I watched. It was about the New York City corruption with the police officers, and this guy tried to stand against his own because there was so much corruption.
Right,
and he
right.
just kept getting beat up, and I can't remember the movie. I wish I could tell everybody so they could watch it. But
I think I know what movie you're talking about. But, when we talk about these other three officers, Michelle, what were they afraid of? They certainly weren't afraid of. They weren't. Yeah, but they weren't afraid of George Floyd. You know what they were afraid of? They were afraid of their peers. They were wussies.
Right.
They were afraid that their peers might look down on them, and maybe they wouldn't get. They'd have to buy beers that night. They were afraid. That's the sad part.
That's why I think that definitely something has to be done with them as well. They can't.
No question.
They can't
They're
get off on
accessories.
this because that's going to make everybody a next officer that witnesses that and doesn't totally agree. Hey, this is my life on the line too, and stop that.
If you see a man in a bar raping a woman, and you see men in the bar that are standing there watching, not doing anything, They are called accessories. This is no different, only, rape is a horrible crime, one of the worst things you could do to somebody, but murder is even worse, and that's what happened here. Michelle, it's good to hear from you. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you very much. 702-257-5396.
By the way, the Justice Department has just made a statement that the George Floyd death investigation is now the top priority after the violent protests.
I certainly would hope so, because more lives now are at risk. Agree with it or not, more lives are at risk now because of these protests. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Dottie. Dottie, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Dottie?
Good morning. Hey,
Good morning, Dottie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I would agree with everybody that says that officer, that had his knee on the gentleman's neck should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I mean, but what I can't get out of my head, and I watched that video a couple times last night, was the look on that cop's face when he was being filmed. And it just made me want to just throw up. It was just horrible.
I'm going to let you do it. Dottie, I'm going to let you describe it for some of our listeners that have not maybe seen the video or did not see the look on that officer's face. Can you describe what you saw?
When the camera was on him, he looked at that camera like he was some arrogant SOB that had the right to do what he was doing, and I don't believe he was. I think he was wrong. He should be prosecuted for it. The guys that watched him should be prosecuted for it. And it's disgusting.
It looked like he actually enjoyed what he was doing.
Yeah.
With his hand in his pocket, and when because he could definitely hear the noises that George Floyd was making, and then you're right. Even when he died, he didn't take his knee off.
Dottie, and I agree.
He was taking satisfaction,
no question,
in murdering and ending the life of somebody else.
And I think that's what Dottie was conveying when she's
the other part to that, the looters and all of that stuff that goes on. I know that they're mad. I know that they're trying to retaliate, but honestly, all they're doing is making people that some racist toward them make it worse.
It doesn't help the cause. Let me ask you this, Dottie. If you don't mind me asking, you're a Caucasian woman. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay,
I'm
so
in my late 60s.
I appreciate that. Let me ask you this question, because there are some conservative talk show hosts out there, not going to name names.
I'm conservative. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's fine. And that's fine. I've got no problem with that. And by the way, for the record, everything you've said in this phone call, I agree with. But the reason why I say conservative, because there are some shows that I was listening to yesterday that are saying that they don't believe that this death and this murder had anything to do with race. They said, well, you know what? I don't see black and white, and I don't think necessarily that these officers did this because of the color of George Floyd's skin. I think those people that make statements like that are an embarrassment to us. What do you say to that?
You know, I would probably agree with that. I watched the part where they put him up against the wall. The guy didn't look like he was resisting them whatsoever. He didn't look like. I mean, if there were 4 guys there, for gosh sakes, you know, if they can't take down one guy, if he's resisting them, something's wrong. They need
agree.
to find a different job.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more, Dottie. It's good to hear from you, and we appreciate your phone call and your perspective. Thank you very much. 702.
Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate
thanks a lot,
it.
Dottie.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. I believe Troy is next. Troy, what's going on?
Hey,
Troy.
guys. Hey, when I was a kid, my dad died. I watched my dad die of my stepdad of a blood clot. And the symptom of that was he was breathing as hard as he could, drawing air into his lungs, and he could speak. But he wasn't getting air through his blood. His blood wasn't circulating, so he died. And my point is that when these guys are cutting off these guys' blood circulation, they can still draw air into their lungs. They can still speak, but it's an illusion that they're doing okay. So
Right.
the cops should know that when people start saying, I can't breathe,
Right.
they're not lying. It's not something they're making up. They may be
You're right.
breathing,
No,
but they're
you're right.
dying.
Troy, you make a very good point there, and I'm sorry, by the way, what you had to deal with in your family. Let me just add something, Troy, and you probably saw this. Even when this guy went completely limp and he was dead, he was clinically dead, it appears. He wasn't breathing. Even after that situation, the cop was such a piece of garbage, he kept his knee over this guy's neck until the paramedics arrived. To me, that's an animal. You're treating this guy like an animal.
I read somewhere 9 minutes, Brian.
Yeah, it's and you make a good point. When somebody says they can't breathe and they already have handcuffs on them, as an officer, what are you afraid of, right?
Yeah, no, that officer, as far as I'm concerned, is evil and just needs to go to prison. And,
right, Troy.
You know,
You're
when
right.
I did watch the video, and I wanted somebody to go bull rush that cop and knock him off him, or if somebody had a gun, I mean, 20/20 hindsight, you could shoot the cop and it would have been the right damn thing to do.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this, Troy. I've heard other people say that if somebody on the sidewalks had a gun, you should have shot the cop. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that one, because you know what happens in that situation? The cops pull out their guns, more people die, and it would have been a mess, and I hate to say it, it would have been even worse than what took place with one person being murdered. I totally understand where you're coming from, but trust me, if somebody pulled out a gun in that situation and tried to take matters into their own hands, more people would have died, there would have been more carnage, and it would have been even worse. But I understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate the call. We got to get to some other phone calls, my friend. Thank you. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Rose. Rose, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Rose?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Doing okay.
I can relate to this. I am a psychiatric nurse, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I see takedowns, that's what we do. I mean, when it gets out of control, I've seen it time and time over again. I oversee overpowering. They take them down. They got their positioning wrong, and I can't breathe. It's a huge red flag.
It is. So let me ask you a question, having some experience with like what you said. Tell me if you agree with me or not. I think not with all these cops, not with the majority of them, but I think with a portion of them, they decided to be police officers because maybe they're insecure with themselves. Maybe they were made fun of a lot in school. And then when you give them a badge and you give them a gun, it gives them a sense of power and a power over society. And I think they look at it as an ego trip rather than protecting and serving. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
So you agree.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you see, this is my problem, Rose. How do you stop people with those character traits from becoming officers? I don't know how.
They don't belong in their position. They need to be fired because that is not this guy's first rodeo.
No, there's no question. And the guy, by the way, who put the knee over George Floyd. There was another instance where I believe he was involved in a shooting where the county had to pay off somebody $25,000. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about the history of these police officers. I find it hard to believe that you murder somebody like that and you don't have a history. And then, listen, there's the alternative.
And actually, there was possible vice presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar was just reported last night as to have basically chosen to not press charges against several police officers in the entire state of Minnesota that have done things similar to this.
You're not going to get me to defend Amy Klobuchar.
This has happened on a consistent basis, and there just hasn't been a lot done about it in the entire state of Minnesota.
As a society, we need to be held accountable, and what I mean by that is this: whether you're Amy Klobuchar or people doing a radio show, if you're going to go on the radio and you're going to say, "I don't think this had anything to do with race," you're an idiot. If you're Amy Klobuchar and you're involved in a specific case like this one and you defend the police, you're an idiot. I don't care who you are. The point I'm trying to make is this. It is fair to call out those who are breaking the law while they're protesting, and that's what I'm doing. But we have to call out these bad cops that pretend to be cops. Some of them are murderers. It is important for us to call them out, and it is important for us as individuals, as citizens, to record anything that you see that cops are doing, or anybody for that matter, that is breaking the law. And I am so glad that those innocent bystanders on the sidewalk decided to record this situation. And that dumbass in Georgia, who since was arrested for murder, by the way, with the McMichaels, he thought he was doing them a favor by recording it. The truth of the matter is, if that recording isn't there, nobody's arrested in Georgia either. We live in a society right now.
And he was arrested last week, Brian.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
We are in a society right now where I personally believe all police officers, no excuses, should have to have body cameras on at all times with audio. And if there is any excuse, if they're going to talk about the budget or they're going to say it's voluntary, then they're full of crap, because it is not only to protect us, but it's to protect them. Officers absolutely need to have body cameras on 24/7. So if, and I mean if, somebody isn't killed and they survive, they can file a lawsuit or they can request body camera footage.
And for anyone who's maybe this particular officer, David Chauvin, supported Donald Trump or he's a Republican, something along those lines. Minneapolis has a Democratic mayor, and the Democratic mayor has chosen the chief of police. And so there should not be any type of political association with the Republican Party or any type of blame put on the President of the United States for this particular incident, because that is not the case according to political lines.
Number to call, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Elle, who's been waiting very patiently on hold. Elle, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Elle?
Good morning, guys. I guess I got lost in the shuffle. Well, you know what? I'm one of those who have friends of all races. And I just have a message for those who just don't seem to understand the emotion and the pain that results when these horrible things keep happening. Because I can remember when President Obama, when he was overcome with emotion over Trayvon Martin, everybody called him divisive. What I would say to these white people and anybody who can't seem to understand this, I suggest you go back and revisit the O.J. Simpson verdict. Now, my white friends were incensed. I couldn't console them, and I, too, personally agreed with them. But there were blacks who thought that it was good that they got off because of the police. But I could not console them. So to everybody, all of these white people who don't understand why people lose, and I disagree with all of this foolishness that they're doing, but this is pent-up emotion. And it seems like nothing's happening. The Garner mother said nothing happened. You have to, I don't want to say you have to be black to understand, but it certainly helps. And to not.
I don't deny that. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. To not expect our president who leads, I mean, he is black. And the fact that he was upset over Trayvon Martin said it could be my son, I couldn't believe the negativity. How could that be negative? And it's just that people don't get it. If you're not black, you don't get it. And
I understand. I understand the point that you're trying to make, and I've said as you know, Elle, I've said this on the show before. I don't know what it's like to be black, and I don't pretend that I do. Even though I certainly never defend a police officer if I think they're wrong, no matter what the victim's skin color is, and certainly this case is a perfect example of that. With that being said, even if you are emotional, and I have no doubt that all these protesters are extremely emotional, and I'm sure at times they've been mistreated by the police. I'm talking about the minorities here. I totally sympathize with that. I still don't think that is ever an excuse to hurt an innocent person, in this case, police that had nothing to do with this crime that was committed, and local businesses, burning down their businesses, looting, stealing. That is, it's one thing to be emotional and to be upset, and it's another thing to commit a crime. And I think we both agree on that, El, but it's good to hear from you. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Mario. Mario, you're next up on the Vegas Take.
Hey, what's up, Mario?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
The only thing with me is that I don't understand why cops don't get held to the same standard as other, humans. It seems to be that when they commit a crime, it's not even okay. They just get off with like a slap on the wrist, and that's the problem, no?
No, I agree with you. Listen, I have a reporter background. I was a news reporter for 10 years. And I've covered these cases time and time again. I covered the Costco shooting that happened here in Las Vegas. I covered the ice cream truck shooting that happened here in Henderson, where a woman driving an ice cream truck was shot and killed. She did have a knife in her hand, but she was on her knees. I covered a lot of different cases, and in just about all of these cases, not all of them, but most of them, the officers go off scot-free. Now, why? Because we didn't see video. We didn't see it as national news. Nobody videotaped the incident. We didn't have body cameras. So the police in certain situations were never held accountable. And what I'm trying to say, and I agree with you, Mario, is that standard needs to change. And I'll tell you, if minorities really want to do something, here's what they do. Demand that body cameras and audio are mandatory, not voluntary. Why would an officer not want to put their body camera on? Well, because they're trying to hide something.
The problem is it's not even with the cops. It's above the judges. It's the whole system. And, there should be a third party who oversights this, it's got to stop at some point,
Well, they had that, though. They had that. It was called a coroner's inquiry, and that never worked because even the prosecutors, were on the police officer's side in many situations. I agree with what you're saying. All I'm trying to say, sir, is that if we had officers mandatory body cameras 24/7, if you have video and audio, then you can't defend your actions if you broke the law. You know what I mean?
Sad that the system doesn't,
Right, exactly.
But it's sad, man, and it's so painful to see someone go that way. Because I can imagine it, you being your brother, you have to imagine it as it being your son, or
it's awful,
or someone
it's heart-wrenching.
in that situation. Because
you're right.
God forbid, you're ever in that situation, that cop is going down.
You're right. Listen, Mario, I can't even imagine if that was somebody in my family, the anger and what I'd be feeling right now, what I would want to do to that police officer. I can't even begin to imagine, but I appreciate the phone call.